What's up, guys? My name is Stephen Guadani with 5 Tool Sports Science right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We got a cool video coming for you guys today. We're going to be doing a breakdown of Aroldis Chapman's pitching mechanics, okay? So my goal for this video, I want to give you guys an overrun of some of his anthropometrics, performance metrics, and biomechanics metrics, okay? I really want to give you guys a good understanding of this and try my best to do this in one take because Brian's mad at me, right, Brian? Okay, here we go. Let's get in a little bit of his weightlifting, his mobility, his plyometrics, and mechanical work, so some of his emphasis on his training. So he focuses on hypertrophy and strength training with higher reps and slower tempo. He's gained a lot of lean muscle mass over the years. When he first came into the league, he was kind of like a skinny guy, still throwing really hard, but now you look at him, he's like 235 pounds, which we'll get to later. All right, so he says he treats his body and arm with great care. He lifts once per week in season to avoid tightness and enhance recovery while he's playing. All right, so mobility, he's naturally hypermobile, capable of extreme positions, including up to 65 degrees of hip to shoulder separation. That's based off of a sports science breakdown on YouTube. That was a video from a long time ago. So they say he was getting 65 degrees of hip to shoulder separation. That might be accurate. All right. So he trains to enhance elastic energy storage through plyometrics. There's one picture of him doing a vertical jump when he was in the Reds organization on a just jump mat. I had the benefit years ago of talking to a minor league guy who was at that spring training camp, and they said that he beat Billy Hamilton in a 100-yard dash. So that just goes to show kind of his elite athleticism, all right? And then he doesn't know what his vertical jump was, but he assured me that it was very high. So that makes sense. This dude was just built to throw baseballs extremely hard, okay? And then for mechanical work, he uses resistance bands and drills to improve body awareness, sequencing, and feel. He emphasizes rotational torque, delayed trunk rotation, strong front leg block to maximize velocity and reduce injury risk, okay? Injury history, he's had minimal arm issues. This is why this dude needs to be studied. He's one of the hardest throwers of all time. He's also never had any significant injuries, all right? So he's had a couple of shoulder inflammations, elbow inflammations, but he's been extremely durable throughout his career. I think people would vastly benefit from having really accurate biomechanics data on him and just use him as a gold standard of what it looks like to throw healthy and throw hard, all right? So now looking at some of the anthropometrics, his height, he's approximately 6'4". Body weight, I'm guessing around 235 pounds. His wingspan, he's got really long arms, although I couldn't find any data on it, but he seems to have exceptionally long arms. Leg length, he has really long legs. So legs is going to help him with his stride length, which they say is up to 120% of his height, which is freakish considering that most pitchers are around 80 to 85% of their height to stride length. So 120% is insane. And he's, like I said, he's just built to throw baseballs really hard, guys. Okay. Next, this is going to be some of his kinematic and kinetic profiles. So basically what I did is just using my database and other open source databases of what elite pitchers move like. I asked AI to just give me a breakdown of what numbers it thinks he's landing in. So going through it, let's go kinematic sequence. So kinematic sequence is going to be the sequencing of his pelvis, his trunk, and then his arm all the way out to his hand. All right, so it's the efficient whip to maximize energy. They estimated he's doing it perfect. Pelvis, trunk, arm, hand. He's got hip to shoulder separation landing in the 45 to 60 degree range. The sports science one said 65 degrees. I honestly think that that's pretty accurate. It's like 65 degrees of hip to shoulder separation at front foot strike would just be bananas, considering that like 45 to 50 degrees is really, really good. 65 degrees would be like, holy crap. Pelvis angular velocity, anywhere from 600 degrees to 800 degrees per second. Again, he's 235 pounds, so even if he's lower on this pelvis angular velocity and trunk angular velocity, he's such a big mass that that mass times acceleration is going to be really impressive. So pelvis angular velocity, 600 to 800 degrees per second. Upper trunk velocity, 1100 to 1400 degrees per second. So pelvis angular velocity is how quickly his hips are going to be rotating, okay? And then trunk angular velocity is going to be how fast his trunk is rotating, okay? Shoulder external rotation, 180 to 195 degrees. That's going to be layback as he goes through shoulder rotation, how much his arm can lay back and spiral as it goes into the throw. Elbow extension velocity is just how quickly the elbow is extending. Arm slot, according to Baseball Savant, was 53 degrees. This is saying 55 to 65 degrees, but Baseball Savant had him at 53 degrees. Stride length, 90 to 100%. We know from the sports science warning they're saying up to 120%. Okay, so that might be a little bit low. Lead knee extension, 350 to 550 degrees per second. So lead knee extension, the amount of flexion you're landing in, the extension of the front leg, and then lead knee extension velocity is how quickly this is going to extend. So 350 degrees is going to be really good. All the way up to like 550 degrees, that would be really elite. He's probably somewhere in the middle in there, which is still very elite. Forward trunk tilt, 35 to 45 degrees. So that's going to be, once you've gone through shoulder rotation, how much your trunk is going to be tilting forward over the front leg. That's pretty correlated with ball velocity. They have them landing anywhere from 35 to 45 degrees. Ground reaction force is high. Again, if you're creating 120% of your stride length, that's emphasizing a lot of linear momentum and acceleration to accelerate your center of mass over that distance, okay? Also, that would mean he's landing with a tremendous amount of front leg and needed braking force to be able to break that forward momentum, transfer it back up into the trunk and out to the arm, okay? Timing landmarks, his pelvis at front foot strike is landing open. They're estimating 30 to 45% open. His trunk is closed and he's got a firm glove side. So they're estimating 35 to 45%. Pelvis landing open at front foot strike, shoulder and glove position closed, firm front side. Okay, so he's not early trunk rotating. Arm stress indicators, low to moderate risk with good timing. Efficient mechanics, minimizing elbow torque risk. Again, he has stayed healthy for so long, throwing so hard. That's incredibly impressive, guys. All right, so let's go into his pitching mechanics. All right, so we're going to take a couple of looks here. We'll do a behind the mound look, and then we're going to do a side view look as well. Okay, so let's start with this behind the mound look. Let me grab my pen. This is really going to showcase, you can see a lot of the coil that he gets into his back leg, coiling this front hip. Oops, if I can get my thing to draw. Coiling this front side, starting his load down, and we'll see how he drifts in the lateral in the side view video here, but he's going to get a lot of internal rotation and coil. He's going to hold that internal rotation you can see in his front foot here as he starts moving down the mound. So coils those hips, starts to load down the mound, and you can see this here. He's keeping that front foot internally rotated, his hip internally rotated, and that's helping him keep his pelvis coiled and then unload it later into front foot strike, all right? So as he moves down the mound here, now you're gonna start to see that hip start to internally rotate and that pelvis start to transfer open. So let's look at this. This is gonna be his femur here. He's gonna start to internally rotate that femur, landing at front foot strike. Let's call it right about, call it somewhere about there. All right, so what happened here? Look at how open he gets that pelvis. So he's rotated his hips, he's rotated that femur, he's created that stride length. He gets a lot of stride length at 120%, so he's getting probably more drive than you're expecting to create that stride length. So he's getting a good transfer of the linear acceleration, also with that internal rotation of the pelvis to really maximize the angular velocity of the pelvis, all right? So this would be considered the angular velocity of the pelvis. He's landing at front foot strike. His shoulder's pretty close. You can see this glove side a little bit, so maybe a little bit of early trunk rotation there, but not much. If I can try to go back one more frame, that probably clears up. I'm probably not right at when he's hitting front foot strike. So a little bit of that glove side pulling open, okay, but he does a really great job of powering that hip rotation, okay? So he's keeping this closed, all right? So he's getting a lot of torque and stretch through his core, through that pec, landing in that forearm up position, okay? So he's creating a ton of separation there. Now, as he goes through shoulder rotation, you can see his arm just go right back into external rotation. Try to get one more frame, there we go. So he's going back into external rotation here. Let's try to get him to max external rotation. One more frame. Got it, okay. Max external rotation here, about 180, 185 degrees, on plane, okay, elbow and shoulders, right on plane through rotation there, and then out to release. Okay, so that's, you get a really good understanding of his hip to shoulder separation and his arm path through this angle and how much hip rotation he's getting. Okay, now let's go look at a side view. All right, here's a side view from a few years back, but it'll still do the trick here. All right, so from leg lift, comes to peak knee height, starts to ride down the mound, and as he's riding down the mound, he's dropping into his backside. He's getting into that good back leg load position. So he's picking up linear momentum, loading into his back leg inside of that back hip, loading into that back hip. All right, now this is the angular velocity of his pelvis. You can see him internally rotate that hip. Let's get him right to front foot strike. Okay. Hits front foot strike. You can see that he came off of the mound, so that's that linear propulsion combined with that hip rotation. There's a terrible arrow. But he's rotated the pelvis open. He's got some linear propulsion. He's got a very long stride length. So they're saying this is 120% of his stride length, rotating the hips fast, landing close, forearm flipped up. All right, so he is timed, coordinated, and sequenced very well into front foot strike. The hips have gone first, the shoulders are closed. That's going to pass energy from the pelvis to the trunk and then to the arm. All right. Let's go forward through shoulder rotation. All right, so now as he goes through shoulder rotation, let's pay attention to this front leg and see how he's blocking it. All right, so goes through external rotation, put him into ball release. All right, so he doesn't get that maximum front leg extension where that knee goes extremely straight, someone like, a Justin Verlander would do, but he does a really good job of decelerating and stopping that forward momentum and transferring it back up, okay? This is his forward trunk tilt. That's actually really good. That's probably more like 45 to 50 degrees of forward trunk tilt, okay? And yeah, that's pretty good. So based off of the biomechanics breakdown of some of the things that it was saying, I mean, without doing a motion capture where you're putting sensors on him or doing a markerless motion capture, it's really going to hard to get the accurate readings of the pelvis rotation, the trunk rotation, the arm, everything like that, the front leg, lead knee extension. But I would say that's pretty reasonably accurate. Maybe not the lead knee extension because he's not really getting a ton of extension. He's kind of just landing and flexion, bracing and holding it. He's not getting that big front leg block where the knee almost hyperextends like you'll see some pitchers do. So I don't know if his lead knee extension velocity would be that high, but certainly his pelvis angular velocity, his trunk angular velocity, and his arm are super high. He just gets into such freaky ranges of motion when he's hitting front foot strike. When he's landing here, if he's really holding about 65 degrees of separation, maybe early in his career, he was getting 65 degrees of separation. I think now that he's older, he's probably not getting quite that much. I don't know, but it's anywhere from 50 to 65 degrees of separation would be really freaking crazy. And then he just gets a perfect arm path going into about 185, 190 degrees of layback. That's highly correlated to ball velocity. He gets that a little bit of front leg extension, but not a ton. He gets great forward trunk tilt right into pitch release. All right, so he's just an example of a dude who checks almost all of the boxes in terms of performance metrics and being strong and being fast and being powerful, of having really great biomechanics. And then having the anthropometrics, the size, being 6'4", being 235 pounds, having long arms, having long legs. He was just built to throw baseballs ridiculously hard. That's why he's so fun to look at. That's why he's so fun to study. So I hope this biomechanics breakdown helped you guys. I hope it was beneficial, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.